Hey songwriters, vocalists, and newcomers to music production. If you are someone who is spending hours scrolling social media, watching other artists release music, and wishing that your songs could sound ready for radio, but not knowing where to begin, this is the video for you. Today I'm going to show you how I took this song from a voice memo to fully produced and Spotify ready. I'm Steph Trivison, songwriter, home studio producer, and an artist, and I'm here to share industry insights, tips, and tricks for the home studio creator, and even some concepts I've learned in my 15+ years as a musician. Let's jump in. For today's video, I'm working with Patrick DiCaprio, no relation, and his project Never Sir. Pat shared a stripped-down guitar and vocal demo with me after a video call to make sure that we were on the same page and that I could actually execute on his vision. It was time to get to work. First, this is something I always do, and you should always do. I took a ton of notes on references, tempo, instrumentation, and more. After getting my headspace right on a track, I like to start by making sure the arrangement is in good order. And in this case, the song had a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus structure, which is typical of this type of rock song. So from there, I moved on to evaluating the chord progression. Now, I love Pat's use of the very spicy D major 7, but it showed up a bit too frequently and was losing its special sauce. So I recommended that we use it as an accent rather than a main element. Pro tip! Think about your arrangement like the decor in your home. All of the pieces need to work together in a cohesive manner. You may love the color red, but if you paint every room in your home red, it could come on a little too strong and unsettling. And with time, you find yourself desensitized to it. It no longer makes an impact anywhere because it's everywhere. So it loses its special sauce. Instead, perhaps red is an accent color for your pillows, artwork, blankets. So here, the equivalent of red is the D major 7th chord, and I changed the verses and choruses by just one chord to allow that D major 7 to have its unique moments to shine. The demo reminded me a bit of the Wallflowers, and I was hearing production elements in my head that reminded me of Green Wheel and Marvelous 3. So much like those bands, I started with guitars, and that provided the mix of power pop and Americana that I was hearing in my head. To start off the song, I really wanted to trick the listener's ear by making them believe that it was small and sort of tinny, and then going really big and wide with the sounds.
So let's take a look at those guitars I mentioned. So here's the first guitar in the intro. So you can hear all of that low end is taken out.
Then at the right moment, we shift to a more standard EQ, and that brings life and fullness to the track.
So I've got two actually MIDI guitars happening here. So I've used the Contact Electric Mint, I think is what it's called. And so I tracked that MIDI. I printed the sort of like clean DI of that, and then now I'm running an instance of Guitar Rag on top of that. So this left track is right in the middle, that preset that I've tweaked a bit. And then the right guitar is the Basic Tweed Delight. Also tweaked a little bit, but those are the presets I started with. Moving on to the chorus, and let's just grab this last chorus here. So there's a bunch of guitars happening. You have those two left and right guitars, but slightly different effects. So I've created new tracks for those. And then we have some rakes. So just some big like open chords.
So now I've got a general idea of all the things I want to do with the guitars. It's time to move on to the drums. Sometimes I do the drums first, but in this case, this is like such a rock song, I wanted to start with guitars. I chose live drum samples and programmed the drums as if they were played by a real drummer. And big pro tip here. Pro tip! If you are looking to grow your production skills, learn the basics of as many instruments as you can. Personally, my first instrument was the drums. My parents saw how much I loved Ringo Starr in the Beatles movie Help, and they bought me a little 3-piece kit when I was 8 years old. And I played for many years after that. And having an understanding of how various beats are actually played by a human being will make your ability to program drums 1,000 times better. For this track, I took that a step further, and I played along, essentially air drumming with the song to understand where I wanted to place certain kick drum patterns and cymbal crashes and snare accents and flams. Don't sleep on learning the basics of the most commonly used instruments.
Already teased the drums a bit here. So the kit is super simple. This is these are samples from the Neon kit from That Sound. Shout out to That Sound. Great drum sample library. And so I've got these grouped. You can see I've got the drum kit here, cymbals and percussion and sound effects. I've got really just like the shells of the drums in this drum kit section. You've got kick, snare, and toms. In the verses, it's really, really simple. You can see that I actually dropped these in by hand. I didn't use a sampler, but I actually cut these samples up and placed them myself. We switched to a different snare in the chorus, but otherwise very similar vibe. We go ahead and add the cymbals in. I've got a hi-hat, a ride, some crashes. Maybe not 100% naturally what I would do if I were actually playing that part, but close and really fills out the sound. Who doesn't love a tambourine? Adds a lot of top end. So that's a look at the drums.
I went pretty simple with the bass here. I used Contact's Prime bass as my starting point, and then I loaded in an instance of Guitar Rig to dial in exactly what I was looking for. And I will often play bass live on a track, but for this song, the MIDI worked, so I just opted for that. It's nice, it's clean, there's not a bunch of noise in the background, no buzzing.
So I loaded up an instance of Guitar Rig on this bass track and specifically started with the clean plec bass preset, Bass Invader, the EQ, a 2A, a compressor, and another EQ. And it's a little like crunchy sounding. A little bit of grit. So that's it on the bass. There is a slight variation to that in the beginning of the second verse. It's just fuzzier, and it is, provides a little bit of landscape change for the second verse.
Keys, please. So I'm just doing a couple of things with keys here. I've got an organ. It's Logic's stock organ instrument, nothing fancy. And I have a pad. The organ is giving it that kind of Americana vibe, particularly in the last set of choruses, while the pad is adding air and texture. So both of those I have going to a bus, and I've added some tape by Baby Audio as some saturation.
In terms of keys in general, there's not much going on. We've got an organ. We've got an organ swell. We've got a tremolo on an organ, so some like sound effect, sound design kind of stuff. And then we've got a pad. So the organ is very simply in the first verse just playing some single notes. And this part, I think, just adds some ear candy to that section. Now, at the end of the song, it's a lot more about like vibe building. If I combine these two, the pad and the organ, and let me give you a sense of what a pad is quickly. I'll just play it here. So a pad is just like kind of a synthetic sound. I tend to lean towards like airy pads. It adds a lot of texture, a bit of sparkle on the high end. So I've combined that pad with the organ in that last chorus with the tape saturation. It sounds a bit like this. Pretty cool. Really just there for texture. This is just Logic's stock organ. If you were really featuring the organ in a bigger way, I'd probably opt for like the B3 plugin from Universal Audio, but I don't own that, and I do have the stock instruments here on Logic, and this just does a good job of just being kind of in the background, adding some texture, some vibe, some feel.
Now, with the instrumentation done, it's time to think about the vocal arrangement. Pat's voice memo had just his solo vocal, but I know that Pat is someone who really likes harmonies and layers, so I intended to go really big with my vocal stacks, and I tracked the vocal stacks on this particular song. It's just something I love doing, so I dropped that in for Pat.
This is going to be my vocal stack here. So I did do Pat. I've known Pat for a number of years, and this is our first time really working together. So I did a little something special. I did drop a lead vocal on the bridge, singing some of the lyrics that he wrote. But that's really the only time I'm sort of like featured. The rest of the song, I'm doing the background vocals. I'm doing the harmonies. So I built this this vocal stack, and it's pretty simple, but it adds a lot of depth to the vocals overall, and is a nice bed for Pat's vocals to sit on top of. So here's the vocal stack soloed. I'm living the dream, I'm larger than life, walking on air, I'm breathing fire. So this is just going through a 2A compressor, some smooth operator again. Most notably, I've cut out a bunch of the low end. Anything really below like 270 is coming out. So that just, we don't need any of that information down there. We got some mid-range instruments happening already. We don't need my vocals to be there. So I pulled that out.
So this will sit pretty low in the mix, but support Pat's main vocal in the choruses.
And now let's look at Pat's vocal. So Pat recorded his vocals at Jim Stewart Recording in Cleveland, Ohio. Shout out, Jim. I've learned nearly everything I know about anything from Jim, so thank you. And I believe he used the Chandler Red on this, so his vocals came in nice. They were super clean and crisp. Great setup over at Jim's place. So I didn't do much to it, but you can see I'm kind of playing around with sections here. In the intro, or like the first verse, I've really bandpassed Pat's vocal a ton, so it has that like telephone sound.
Mistakes and regrets, I'm gonna need more hands.
I've also gone in and just sort of tightened things up, tuned, aligned in terms of timing to make sure that the vocal is as clean and clear as it can be. It's probably the most important part of any pop or rock song. So I've got that. The verses switch over to a more clean vocal tone, and I start introducing the doubles. So I have doubles panned hard right, hard left.
If you know's on repeat. What should I learn?
And I also have created this harmony. So Pat didn't originally sing harmonies on the track, but I used Logic's flex pitch tool to create his own harmonies. So soloed, they sound a little funny, but in the broader mix, you don't really know that he didn't sing them himself. So moving towards let's talk about delay throws for a moment. In the second verse, I introduced some more ear candy, some delays that are kind of interesting. And what I like about this particular delay throw is that I've put a bunch of processing on it, but specifically I put Little Altar Boy from Sound Toys on here. And I've dropped the formant down by just one, whatever the measurement this is, by just one. So it makes it sound just slightly different than Pat's natural voice. And then I've, bandpassed the heck out of that, put some delay on it. And then on the second portion, which you'll see here, I've added some tremolo as well, just to give it some like stopping effect. So let's listen to that.
And missing what is right in front of me, feeling empty hands.
So really just playing with moments to create some interest and some ear candy. And then last we've got the coming out of the what I called the soft chorus, but sort of a quiet chorus. Pat's got a cool vocal thing happening. I tried to make it sound like it's soaring. It's sort of more increasing reverb, automated reverb, and delay happening there. And then it goes into the rest of the chorus. So I'll play just the vocals. I'll stack my vocal stacks back in, and you'll hear Pat's vocal on top of that.
Breathing fire, I'm living the dream, I'm larger in life, I'm walking on air, I'm breathing fire, I'm living the dream, I'm larger in life, walking on air, I'm breathing fire.
I added a little EQ, compression, reverb, delay, bada bing, bada boom.
Okay, so that's everything. Let's get a listen to the voice memo.
Need to ever went to adjusted, ready to burn and turn. I live the dream and larger than life, walking on air, breathing fire.
And now let's listen back to everything all together.
I'm living a dream, I'm larger in life, I'm walking on air, I'm breathing fire, I'm living the dream, I'm larger in life, walking on air, I'm breathing fire, I'm living the dream, walking on air.
So that's a quick look behind the scenes on how I took this voice memo to a fully produced and stream-ready track. Songwriters, if you're looking to get your music off the page and out into the world, but you don't know where to start, let's have a conversation. I've linked my site below. It's StephTrivison.com. Drop me a line and I'll be in touch and hopefully can help you through your own process of getting your song from voice memo to Spotify ready.